Chapter 1. The Mystery of the Parchment. Late one Sunday afternoon in May 1863, my uncle, Professor Lidenbrock, came home early. We lived in a house in the city of Hamburg. He was very excited. Martha, our cook, was worried. "Why is Professor Lidenbrock here so early?" she cried. "His dinner isn't ready yet." I told Martha not to worry, and she went back to the kitchen. I started to go upstairs to my room, but Uncle Otto's voice stopped me.
"Axel, come here," he shouted.
I entered his room. My uncle was sitting at his desk. He was looking at an old book.
"Look at this," he exclaimed. "What a fantastic book! It's more than 600 years old. It's wonderful."
"What is this wonderful book called?" I asked. But my uncle did not hear me at first. He kept opening and shutting the book and talking about it to himself. I repeated my question.
"This book is a translation of a famous Icelandic book. It was written by Snorri Sturluson in the 12th century. Ah, what's this?"
A piece of parchment fell out of the book. There were strange letters written on it. My uncle picked it up and looked at it. He became even more excited.
"Look, it's written in runes."
"What are runes, Uncle?" I asked.
"Runes are the letters of the old Icelandic alphabet, of course," my uncle replied impatiently. "I can read runes, but I can't understand this. What does it mean?"
And he began to talk to himself again. I was used to that because my Uncle Otto was a little strange sometimes. He gave lectures at the University of Hamburg. He was a famous geologist. He knew more about the earth than any other scientist. Other geologists came from all over the world to learn from him. I learned about geology from him. He was a very good teacher. When my parents died, I came to live with him. I often helped him in his work. I was proud to be the assistant of such a famous man. He started to walk up and down the room with the parchment in his hand. He looked puzzled. When he was puzzled, he usually became angry. He was getting angry now. Martha opened the door of the study. "The soup is ready, Professor," she said.
"Okay," shouted my uncle.
Martha closed the door and ran back to the kitchen. I followed her and sat down to dinner. Martha was a very good cook, and I was hungry. I was just finishing my dinner when my uncle called my name again. I got up from the table immediately and rushed back to his study. My uncle was sitting at his desk. He was staring at the parchment.
"These are runes," he said, "but the letters are mixed up. That is why I cannot understand it. It is written in a secret code, and there is something else."
"What?" I asked.
"The book and the parchment are not written in the same handwriting. The writing of the parchment is later than the writing of the book. Therefore, I think that this parchment was written by someone who owned the book."
My uncle continued to stare at the writing on the parchment. Then he used a magnifying glass to make the letters bigger. He looked at the parchment again. He pointed to a line of letters.
"Arn Saknussemm," he exclaimed. "Oh, that's an Icelandic name. Saknussemm was a famous Icelandic scientist of the 16th century. He made many great scientific discoveries. He must have owned this book."
"But why should Arn Saknussemm want to hide what he had discovered?" I asked. "Why should he keep it secret?"
"I don't know," my uncle replied, "but I'm going to find out. I will neither eat nor sleep until I have discovered the secret."
My uncle guessed that the message was written in Latin and not Icelandic. Scientists of the 16th century always wrote about their discoveries in Latin. He tried reading the letters forwards, then backwards, but they still made no sense. He hit his desk with his fist.
"That's not it," he cried. "It doesn't make any sense."
And he ran out of the house and slammed the door behind him. Martha and I watched him go. "He has gone without his dinner," she said. "He will starve."